Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. This video is on plotting quadratics. It's really done Form 3, Form 4, Form 5. It usually comes to CSEC, and I'm really doing this particular video for my Form 4 class to make sure that they remember how to plot quadratics and how to do it with specific scales, and to even figure out what part of your curve is above the x-axis and below the x-axis. Anyways, in time you all will understand everything, so please stay tuned to see what I have in store. So this is my number 1. It says here, using a scale of 1 centimeter to represent 1 unit on the x-axis and 1 centimeter to represent 2 units on the y-axis, plot the above graph. Well, it really meant to say below, but yeah, excuse my typo. So it means I want us to plot this graph down here, which is a quadratic, x squared plus 2x plus 5. So we need to fill in these values here, right, in this table. Now I'll show you all how to fill in the values. Once we fill in the values, then we go to graph paper, but you have to do the table first before you could go to graph paper. To get these values from the table, we have to substitute each value here. Now they gave us specified values. So for x, they said x is minus 3 to 2. So when x is equal to minus 3, we will get y is minus 3 squared. Well, where did I get that from? From up here. Substituting into here. Plus 2 by minus 3 plus 5. This will give me here 9 minus 6 plus 5, right? So adding this up now, I'll get 14 minus 6, and that would be 8. Now, seeing that we got 8 here, then we could just place 8 here. So minus 3 corresponds with 8, so that means that is if our first coordinate, minus 3, 8. Right? Now we have to repeat the process for minus 2, minus 1, etc. Now what I did was I went ahead and I worked out the values for minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, and this is the working down here. So when I substituted for minus 2, I got minus 2. Following this equation here, I'm getting minus 2 squared, right, which will give us a 4. 2 by minus 2, which will give us minus 4, and then of course you just add in 5, add 5. 4 minus 4 is 0, add 5 is 5, so here will be 5. When I put in for minus 1, I repeat the process, minus 1 squared plus 2 by minus 1 plus 5 gives me 1 minus 2 plus 5, right? Adding the positives, I get 6 minus 2, 4. So this is how I get these values here, right? So let me fill this in. So I will get 8 here, 4 here, then I will get 5, 8, and 13. Right, so these are the values, the coordinates I'm going to get now. So now I could get to this point where I'm going to use a scale to represent. I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to go to the graph paper now. That's what I'm going to do. Now, when you start with your graph paper part of it, the first thing you have to do is analyze your graph paper to see, well, okay, how are the boxes drawn up, right? We can see there are many lines, and some lines are darker than some. Between the dark lines, there are 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this last one 5. So this is counting in 5s, right? So this whole distance here is actually 1 centimeter. So it's actually 1 centimeter going this way also, upward or downward, right? So for our x-axis, they said they want 1 centimeter to represent 1 unit. So that means when I draw my x-axis this way or up here, wherever, right, it's going to be 1 centimeter each, right? 1 unit space in each. So it'll be like minus 3 here, minus 2 here, etc., right? And for the y-axis, when I draw the vertical line now like that, it will be counted in 2s. So it'll be like, say, 0 is here, here will be 2, here will be 4, here will be 6, and so on. And similarly, here will be minus 2, here will be minus 4, and so on. Right? So I'm just playing around to show you all how the layout would be. Now let me do the proper thing. Right? So I'm going to put on an x-axis and a y-axis and start to label it. So just by browsing through these values here, x values are going from minus 3 to 2. So that means I must have a negative value for x and positive values for x. And the y values are only positive. So that means I don't need a negative value for negative values for y. So that means the bottom here and the axis down here now, I don't need that, right? So I have my x and y axis. Now it's time to put in the values, meaning to put down the different measurements, right? So this is 1 centimeter here, so that'll be 1, 2, 3, etc. Well, I don't have to go to 3, but I just went on. Here be minus 1, here be minus 2, minus 3. So I have these values here, right? Nice. Now I need to make sure that I have these values here from 8 to, well, the lowest value is 4 and the highest value is 13. So counting in 2s now, I'll go 2, 4, etc. And you keep going until you've covered the value, the top value that you want to cover. So I need to go up to 13, so I could just stop at 14. So then you need to put y here for the y-axis, x here, you need to put 0, and then you need to label your scale. So your scale will be, now this is really important, you're going to get a mark just for this, right? It will be, you'll have to say 1 centimeter for 1 unit on the x-axis, and then you say 1 centimeter for 2 units on the y-axis, right? And you put it kind of nice and neatly somewhere there, right? Now let's start to plot points. So I'll do that in another color. So let's start. We have minus 3, 8. So minus 3 will go with 8, so that's about there. And then you always label minus 3, 8. Minus 2, 5. Now seeing that I'm counting in 2s, this means 5 would have to be in the middle there, right? Because there are 5 lines in between 4 and 6. So that means that 5 would have to be in between those 5 lines, half of those 5 lines, which would be 2.5 lines. You understand? So that's why I went 1, 2, and half of this one, so that will be the middle value there. So that'll be minus 2, 5. Continuing onwards now, I'll go minus 1, 4 will be here, 0, 5. So you just continue plotting, 1, 8. To me, this is pretty easy, especially when your scale is nice and, you know, spaced out like this. 2, 13. So I have my points. Now I need to connect. Now once we have these points, what we need to do is connect it, right? So I'm going to try to do that as best as possible. Please excuse me if I make mistakes. Right, and that's about it. So you notice I don't have like lines going like this, right? We don't want lines like that. We want nice smooth lines. I tend to do it with pencil. Everything here that I've done should be done with pencil, right? The last thing you do, guys, is you label. So you make sure you write this up somewhere on your graph, right? You get a mark just for that as well, right? So now let's see, we did this piece here. Let's find the roots of this equation, which is part B. The roots mean wherever it cuts the x-axis. Clearly this is above the x-axis, so it has no roots. So there are no solutions for this one, right? No roots. The third part now, it says state the set of values of x for which y is positive and write your answer as a solution set. Where is y positive for x? Isn't it all our values? All our values we have here, we have y's that are positive, and we could see y is positive over this x-axis here, right? Down here is where y is negative. We'll have negative 2 and so on going down here, right? And we do not have any coordinates that fall into this category. So it means that your answer for part C will have to be, you write set solution like this, right? You always write brackets and you write the x, and you could write negative infinity is less than or equal to negative positive infinity. It means all values of x, right? So this would be a suitable solution for part C. And then state the point of maximum or minimum. Now this has a minimum point, and to me it kind of looks like the minimum point from your graph, because it didn't ask you to actually find it. Because if you had to actually find it, then you'd have to use like completing the square and so on, which I have in another video, right? Then you're just reading off, and to me it looks like it might be minus 1, 4. Right? And correct me if I'm wrong when we do it accurately. If you're doing it on graph paper, you might have a more accurate answer than mine, but just by observation it looks like it might be around that. Now if it is that it was not centered like that properly, then I would have to read more accurately, like it might be, say, before the minus 1 and so on, right? But anyway, this is how you do a question like this. Now let me try one that's a little more complex and go through the same steps here. Right, so this is my number 2. Now in number 2, we have a different quadratic here, right? And we have a different scale also. It's 2 centimeters to represent 1 unit on the x-axis and 2 centimeters to represent 5 units on the y-axis, right? Now when you have a question like this with brackets, now you can leave it with the brackets, or if you want, you can expand. Now I prefer to expand. So I will get minus 2x squared minus x plus, right? That is from multiplying the minus x here by the 2x and then the positive 1. So that's how we get the minus 2x minus x, right? And then we have to repeat the process, but now do it with the 3. So the positive 3 here now will have to multiply by the 2x and then multiply by the 3. So I'll get 6x plus 3. Now simplifying this, I'll get 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Right? So that would be the quadratic that I would be substituting all these values into. So let me start with x is minus 2. I'll get y is equal to minus 2 by minus 2 squared plus 5 by minus 2 plus 3. I hope you all understand what I did, right? I just simply substituted this value of minus 2 everywhere I had an x in this black line here, right? So this will give me minus 2 by 4 minus 10 plus 3. Minus 2 by 4 is minus 8. Minus 10 plus 3 works out to be minus 18 plus 3, which is minus 15. So guess what, guys? We have our first coordinate, which is minus 2, corresponding with minus 15. Now we repeat the process for minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. I'll just show you all the working, or perhaps I could do it for minus 1. Let me do it quickly. So again, we put it in, because I know some of you all may get confused with these negative signs, because there's a negative sign here, and then there are negative signs here, you know. So anyway, so when x is minus 1 now, we are putting minus 1 into this equation here, right? So we are going to put minus 2 bracket minus 1 squared plus 5 by minus 1 plus 3. Right, then we will get minus 2 will stay here. Minus 1 squared will be a positive 1. Remember that, guys. 5 by minus 1 is minus 5, and you put back your plus 3. Minus 2 minus 5 plus 3. I hope you all understand how I got this. Minus 2 by 1 is minus 2. And then we write back the minus 5 plus 3. We have these two which are owing. I owe 2 and 5, so that means I owe 7. So that means my answer is minus 4. So I'm going to get minus 4 here, right? Repeating this process. Now I'm just going to show you guys the working for the others. When x is 0, everything would work out to be 3 here. When x is 1, we will get this. Six here. Lastly, when x is minus 2, we'll get minus 2. That will be 4 in here. By minus 2 will be minus 8. That works out to be 2 plus 3, which is 5. And then lastly, we will do it for 3. Right, so we're getting 0, right? Now just a note, whenever you get 0 here for your y, that means that there's a root. So I could tell one time that x is 3 is a root of this equation because I got a 0 here. I didn't get 0 before, so I can't say there's another root here, right? From my workings, right? Now once we have this table filled out like this, then the next thing I'm going to do is go to graph paper and start to draw up based on the scale, right? So now I'm going to that. Now I flip the graph paper this way to accommodate all the values of x and y, right? So now I'm going to include the x and y axes. So I think now looking at this, it looks as if I have some negative values of x and positive values of x, and same for y. So it means that I most likely have a T-shaped graph, right? Not like the one before where it was more predominantly positive for your y, right? So I will possibly go with doing my x-axis like about here. Now, of course, everything should be done in pencil, right? I'm putting in another line. Now, it could happen that you could do up your x and y axes, and that's why I keep saying do it in pencil, and you may not it may not work for you, right? And you might have to erase and so on. So looking at this, I need to have x values that are from minus 2 to 3, and I'm counting 2 centimeters. So if this end here is minus 2, then 2 centimeters away is minus 1, then I'll get 0 here, and then 2 centimeters away 1, and then I'll get 2, and then I'll get 3. So this line works perfectly. It's just I'm not sure if I have to move it higher up or lower down, right? So I have one line set up there. Now I need to have my y-axis. Now I need to have from minus 15 to high values of positive 6. Again, they said for the y-axis, I have to count in 2 centimeters. So say lower down here is 50. Say this dark mark here is minus 15. Then here will be minus 10. Then here will be 5. Then this axis here will be 0. Nice. And then going up here will be positive 5. Right? I may need to shift it a little bit because I need to go up to, what is it, 6? Yeah. So I'll just probably edit this a little bit. Now this is only happening with me here because I have cropped a graph paper from online and put it here. But I'm really supposed to get one little box up here, one more line up here, right? But in your case where you're using graph paper and following your scale to a T, everything should be smooth. Now I need to put in now my y-axis, right? So my y-axis looks like, if here's minus 2, minus 1, 0, my y-axis may be along this dark line like this. So filling in our values now, we'll get minus 1, minus 2 here, minus 1, 0, 1 here, 2 here, and 3 here. Nice. So it works out perfectly. We get values of minus 2 to 3. Now let's see if we can get minus 15 to 6. So here will be minus 5, minus 10, minus 15. Now when you are following a scale, up here will be minus 5. So minus 6, as I told you, would be 2 lines, right? So it'll be up here. Sorry, positive 6, will be here. So I don't have that on my graph paper because, as I said, this is cropped and this is edited just for this video, right? So, but on your graph paper, you should have it, right? So anyway, now let's fill in our points. Minus 2, minus 15 will be down here. And of course you label. Minus 1, 4, minus 4 will be here. Because remember, if here to here is 5 units, right, that means every one is mine. Every 2 lines is a unit. So that means it works like this. Right? Keep going. Tree will be here. Will be there. 0, 3. 1, 6 will be, as I told you, above here. 2, 5. And 3, 0 here. Alright. Now, of course, you're writing your scale. Scale is 2 cm for 1 unit on X and 2 cm for 5 units on Y, right? You make sure and write that in. Now let's fill in the graph. Something like that. One nice smooth graph. Going up like that. Now it's kind of hard because I'm doing this electronically. With a pencil it's much better, right? Right, so it's just this piece here. Yeah, cool. So a nice smooth graph, you're getting a mark for that, then you label. Right, now this, you'll get proper marks for this, right? It's just this little thing here. You could probably fix that. Well, hopefully you don't do it like that, right? Now, so now we have our graph. Find the roots. The roots will be here, this point here, and this point here. So your roots, this answer here will be, let me write it here. Your roots will be x is equal to what that looks like, minus a half, and x is equal to 3, right? But see now, state the set of values for which y is positive. Now where's y positive, guys? Y is positive in this section of the graph, right? That is above the x-axis, and y is negative here in this section of the graph, right? Below the x-axis. So y is positive actually in this part, right? So it's positive from this point to this point, right? So then you will write, since you're writing it in set form, I'll just write it here for you. If it's positive, it will be x such that, you have to write this like this, it's between minus a half and 3. But we do not include the equal signs because positive means greater than 0, not including 0. right? Now say I asked you also, where is y negative? Y is negative actually below. So that's actually here, and well, this piece here, right? So below now will actually be set form. It'll actually be two sections. So it'll be x such that x is less than minus a half, or x is greater than 3. And that will be your answer if I asked you for if it was negative. Right? So we've covered part C. Lastly, state the maximum or minimum point. We have a maximum point here, and it kind of looks like it's here. It looks like it's 1/6, or perhaps if I drew it better, it might be a little here. So maybe it's around there. So I will say the maximum point here, and you have to say that is maximum, might be probably, what's that, like a 1.2, right? And yeah, probably like a 6 or so. Yeah, so I will just stick in 6 here, and then this is the coordinate, the point for the maximum or minimum, and something like this you'll get full marks for. Anyways, I hope you all understood what I did. I hope it was it made the topic easier. If it doesn't, feel free to let me know, and if it does, of course, sure, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks guys for coming on.